Alrighty. Okay, so to just kind of like starting with SolidWorks to then that demo we just did with the cube on the table to just do this in CAD now to just show you. So everyone should have something. I tried to reset my settings to default. Again, let me know if it looks different. There is one change I made. So when SolidWorks loads, right, if you want to start a new part, just file new. Most of you will probably see something that looks like this. Quick breakdown on what we're looking at. A part, again, is just a single body, or it's intended to be a single body, is kind of, I think, how the program was designed. An assembly is like a group of things. So if we use the sriracha bottle, for example, if you're taking a very like engineering standard approach to SolidWorks, the bottle would probably be one part. The cap looks like it's two parts because it has a screw top and it has a threaded base. Yeah. And you would then create an assembly of the three parts together. So that's like a difference on parts and assembly. There's kind of like an asterisk to that, which essentially is, for the most part, in industrial design, unless you're working with engineers and you're making things like to a manufacturing level, that's when you're often working in assemblies. If you're working with other industrial designers and designing, more often than not, you're staying in a full part. The sole reason for that is assemblies can get really complicated with links and pointing to different files. It can be really difficult file management. So using a part with multiple solid bodies is more often the default in terms of just a workflow and part file management way of working. Drawings are ways of creating like orthographic views, dimensions, so on and so forth. So for the most part, 9 out of 10 times in this class, we're going to be working on parts here. So I just double clicked on that, or I could have clicked OK. Yeah, maybe I'll get to that later. I did create, as a side note, I did create templates, and we can look into downloading that and putting it, filing it in the proper directory later. The reason I made part templates is there are some like light and background settings that I prefer that make your models look better. And so if you want, I could either give you guys literally those numbers, but I think an easier way is to just take my template and then anytime. So if I go, let's see, I think I can, sorry, this is a bit of an aside. It should load this one. Yeah. It's like super minor. It may not even show up on there. But yeah, so like the default background has this like gradients. Like the default that I changed is to a pure white background. It just makes getting screen captures like a little cleaner. It's like these little nuanced things, again, just for efficiency. So yeah, so you create a new part. So now let's like just look at what we see here. I'm going to assume most of you have something that looks like this. I think is default. And actually, you guys probably don't have this either. So I'm sorry, I did end up customizing my layout. So you guys probably see something that looks like this. So just in general, what we're looking at here. So on the left here, again, this is the feature tree. The best analogy that I can come up with is that this is the Photoshop history that is always there that tells you what you do to the file. You can see that it starts with 3 planes, front, top, and right. And then the origin, which is kind of the center of your object. It's kind of the starting point where everything is built off of to some degree. It literally represents a point in space. But it's kind of like the grounding factor of your design. So that's where the feature tree starts. There's these different folders. And again, this might look slightly different to you guys. I think there's like it defaults for solid bodies to be hidden unless there's multiple. Again, we can go through setting up these defaults maybe later, but for now, this is just a breakdown. So here, this is called the command manager. These are all your different icons of things you can do. For the most part, you will basically be using features and sketches. Evaluate, there's some of that for measuring or getting mass. We'll get to that with project 1. I never use dim expert, add-ins, or CAM. I think CAM is like a engineering evaluation something. So again, most of the way that I work to just build on that demo before. So again, it's like I want to choose what sheet of paper to draw my box on. So I'm going to choose the top plane. I use a lot of hotkeys when I work. It's just a more efficient way to navigate the program. That is something else that I have for you guys here. And again, after I do this intro, it probably will make sense for us to work together to set up our SolidWorks so that they match. But I basically exported all of my SolidWorks settings here. And if you apply that, it will give you a same layout as what I have and the same hotkeys as what I have. So again, to use my analogy, it's like picking what piece of paper I want to start to draw on. I can pick this top piece of paper. I can go to my sketch tab here, and I can click this, which says create a sketch. What it does is it automatically rotates the plane so that it's like I'm looking down on my piece of paper. I can now look at my sketch tools here. Again, just like any program, there's multiple ways to make the box. Obviously, I could draw one line at a time, but the more efficient way is to take this rectangle tool, click and drag and make my box, just like I showed you guys again on the table with drawing. Again, with sketches, you can give them relationships. So like I can select this line and holding Control or on oh no, I guess they both have PCs, or so they both have Control. If you hold Control, you can like select both these lines and you can say, you know what, I want them to be equal. So again, here's like a properties tab, right, where it's asking you what relationships you want to have within the sketch. So in this instance, I'm going to say equal. This is going to give me a square because these two sides are equal. Now what I can do is, yeah, please.
Which dimension do they just take?
That's a very good question. Let's look at this again. Let's see if we can observe. It looks like it went shorter. So let's see if it always does that. It appears to go shorter. Oh, let's try that. So let me click. Okay, so it went shorter. So let's click this one, then this one. Let's click this one, then this one. Okay, it looks like it always goes shorter. Really, more often the way that it ends up working is you might first tell it, you might go to your smart dimension here, and you might say, hey, I want this to be 4 inches long. And now, so what you've done now is you've fixed this line. You've given it like kind of a hard, fast rule. You've said, I want this line to be exactly 4 inches and no more, no less. Now when I select this line and I tell them to be equal, it's going to default to the 4 inches. So before we saw it defaulting to shorter, let's see now, it's going to default to the fixed dimension. It's going to grow to the longer one. So yeah, good question. Now again, like I said, there's this is the origin. More often than not, I like to center things on the origin. It's just kind of best work practice. So, I mean, I think the tutorial had you just like take a corner and put it on the origin. That's fine. Again, the way that I like to work is have the origin in the center. So like I might take a line. I guess, sorry, this is a bit of a tangent. Click on this one corner to here. So, oops. Again, take the line, click up there. This corner to here. So it's like I'm clicking on that anchor, I'm clicking on this anchor. Now it gives me my line. Again, here it also defaults to these line properties. I can either click check or I can hit escape to just get out of that. Now the reason that I did that is now I can take this line and clicking on it, holding Control and clicking the origin, I can now give them a relationship. And I could say that I want the relationship to be at the midpoint of this line. And now I have my box centered on the origin. You'll notice that some colors changed here, okay? So when the sketch is blue, and again, this is default, blue means that it is not defined. Even though this line is defined, it's still movable in space. The minute that I give it a relationship and fix it to something solid, so like, again, the origin doesn't move. The origin is like the 0 point in your model. It's kind of like where everything is built off of. Now that I told it to be the center of this line, everything turns to black because now it is fully defined. If I click on any of these points and try and drag them, it won't move because it's what's called fully defined. Does that make sense? So there's a couple new terminology there. So there's undefined and defined. For sake, it may get a little more confusing, but so if I delete this one, if I delete the dimension, you'll notice it turns blue again, and it allows me now to drag this. Of course, because of that equal relationship, it stays a square. If I click on this line, I can see the relationships it has here. It's horizontal and it's equal. Or there's a little box here that I can click on this equal and hit delete and get rid of that. And now it's like, again, once again, undefined. So it's all of those things. It's both the relationship of equality and the dimension and the anchor to the center that fully define this sketch. I didn't notice things were orange where when this was deleted.
Or maybe that's just when you
No, it's fine. I mean, I'm happy with the questions. Yeah, to my knowledge, it's very possible there's some color cues that I'm not aware of. But yeah, to my knowledge, I'm not familiar with anything orange linking. I think the orange here it's just saying I'm hovering over it. I think when I'm hovering over here, it's like I'm in the center of the whole box. Okay. So the way that SolidWorks works is this is a sketch, and like I showed you guys in real life, you're telling the sketch to extrude. You're saying this is a shape and I want it to grow. Now that I put another line through the middle of it, if I exit out of this sketch, and if I go to features and tell it to extrude, it's confused because there is a line. It doesn't know whether I want it to be this triangle or both, okay? So that's kind of like an error that's going to happen if you take your sketch and like kind of cut it in half, which is something I did. So there's a way to fix that. I can go to my sketch and edit it again. Now, just like the lines have properties, so this line has an equal value to this line. So again, we're in this line properties dialog here. I can select this middle line. One of the properties here is called for construction. If I click this checkbox, you'll notice the line changes to a dashed line. Do you guys see how that changes? I'm realizing now this is like really faint. But the line changes from a solid line to a dashed line. Yeah, that's really hard. But you should be able to see it on your computer. The dashed line says that it's for construction. Basically what that means is the line is no longer a hard definition. It literally exists just for a relationship. Again, if I exit out of the sketch and now I go to features or select the sketch and say, hey, extrude, now it's no longer confused because I told it to ignore this line in the middle. Now the bounding lines are the ones all on the outside. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, just like I showed you guys or mentioned, this is now, I'm creating a new feature. It's asking me through the property manager on the left, hey, what do you want to do? Now, there's a lot of different options in here, but again, to begin with, the main option is just how long do you want to make it? So if I want to make it a perfect cube, I can type in 4 inches, and that's all I care about. Some of the things in here, the from, it's kind of, you're telling it where to start. It's always going to default to making the feature happen from the plane. But I could like offset it. I could say, hey, I want it to start 2 inches off of my piece of paper. The direction blind means just how far do you want to make it. Like, again, it's kind of like it's like you literally tell it blindly how far to go no matter what. There's other things like you can say you can make it go up to a vertex, which is like saying, hey, I want it to stop at this point. You can say I want it to stop at a surface. You can say I want it to stop 2 inches from this surface. You can say I want it to go to a body, so on and so forth. But again, more often than not, you're doing blind and you're saying how long you want it to go. These other options, like you could have it also grow a separate direction too, if you wanted. You can uncheck that to turn it off. Thin means you don't want it to be a hollow. You want it to just, you want to take the lines and give them a bit of thickness. That's what that feature is. The selected contours is, again, if you want to tell it to be just a triangle. In this instance, it defaults to the whole sketch. If you start to mess with this, it looks like it allows you, even with the construction line, to still tell it to be half if you want it to do that. But again, on a base level, it's just telling you how long you want it to be. Now we have a solid body. Again, within here, this folder, I have this solid body. Like I mentioned, it now consumes the sketch. If I click this little arrow here, that sketch is still in there. So I can always go back, right-click, edit the sketch, change the value to what I want it to be, like down to 2 inches. Click the check. Either click Enter or Escape. Should get me out of that, or no, I guess Escape isn't. Enter does. Or again, clicking up here on the top right of the screen. Yep, it would. So that's a great question. Let's look at that. So I can, again, that's one of the strengths of SolidWorks, is because you have this tree that you can infinitely go back and edit, you can make some of these changes. Now, so yes, so here we have our feature. We can go back, drop this down. We can go to the sketch and click Edit Sketch, or right-click Edit. I can select the whole sketch, clicking and dragging. I can hit Delete. I can now go up here and look at what other options I have. I can look at for my circle tool. This one I can click on the origin so it's centered. I can drag that how far I want it to be. I don't have to define it. There is no set rule that sketches have to be defined. And again, we'll get more into that with project 1, like why you define something, why you wouldn't. And now if I click Exit on the sketch, now it's a cylinder. So it's really robust. Like it'll make any, if I go back in here and edit it again, and now I use hotkeys, and we'll get into that. So I just hit 0 or O to get another circle. Let's see, this might confuse it, but my guess is it's going to give us a donut. So it's very robust and editable. Now where this becomes a problem, if I go back here, I hit R for rectangle. Again, that's best workflow is using hotkeys. Now let's say I build another thing. If I go here and I say, you know what, this is my new piece of paper. Now I want to make a sketch on this piece of paper. I gave you guys the example of a star. Sadly, there is no star tool. I'll write SolidWorks in angry letter. I can make a bunch of lines, like just clicking and continuing. It's not going to exit out until I complete a shape. So the program's kind of smart in that way. When I close a contour, a closed shape, it's going to complete that for me. Let's see, can I just go extrude out of that? I can. So I'm still in the edit of the sketch. I went to features, I clicked extrude. Okay, now I'm building the star off of here. So now I have a couple more options because I have a body that already exists. The default is to merge them into one body. I can uncheck this and make 2 bodies, but let's let it merge and just see what happens. So now here's my shape. Now let's use that example again. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to edit this. So again, I click on the sketch, right-click, edit. Let's actually see. Can I right-click? Yep. If you right-click on the feature, there's a little icon here that looks like a pencil on a graph paper. If you click that, it'll allow you to edit the sketch. So now I'm going to select these lines and delete them. I'm going to hit O because, again, it's always more efficient to use hotkeys. I'm going to make this circle, click a check, exit out of here. And now, because I had another feature that relied on the sketch being a square, it relied on a flat face to build off of. Because that face no longer exists, wow, that's actually pretty smart. This program's come a long way. It gives me an error. I'm impressed that it knew to make this like blend like that. The program's always getting better. But now we get this little exclamation mark. It's saying, hey, there's something wrong. you'll see two kinds of errors. One will be yellow, one will be red. Yellow means something is missing, but we figured out the best we could. Red means something's horribly wrong and we couldn't figure it out, so it doesn't exist anymore. Or not that it doesn't exist anymore, like it didn't even attempt to build it. Maybe like 4 years ago, no, I don't know. I was gonna say like this might have been a red error, but again, the program always gets smarter. So it figured out what to do here. So what's missing here is if you click on this, it should give you an error, and it says here, could not find face or plane. And again, because this used to be a square, we picked one of those faces, one of those pieces of paper to build off of. Now that piece of paper is gone, it doesn't know where that sketch exists. And that's where that error comes from. So that's a great question, Scott. It's a long way to say, yes, you can go in and edit sketches. Just be aware that if you have features that rely on the shape or the sketch or a corner or something, and you change that, you may get an error. And again, hopefully in this class, we're going to talk at some length to like how to fix those errors, because that is another part of being efficient within the program. Yeah. They are still one object, which again, the program, I'm impressed that it figured that out. I'll be honest, I did not expect that. But yeah. Let's mess with that. So, okay, I mean, if we just build off of this, if I go here and I right click, so the plane is missing, or here, let's just right click, edit the feature. If I uncheck merge result and just click check. So firstly, I forgot to point this out before, but the object has these like dark lines outlining it. Hopefully you guys can see that, right? Because these are now two separate objects, hopefully you can see there is no longer a black line here. Even if I click this face, you'll see it'll highlight it in yellow. It goes into this object. Not only that, I can now like right click on this body and I can say hide, and now we can see just the star. Again, now that we have two bodies, we have this folder here. Whenever there's like a hollow, do you see how this is just like a white cube? Do I need to maybe like, no, that doesn't work. I'm gonna like try and zoom in. When it's a white cube, it means it's hidden. When it's a solid cube, it means it's shown. So if I right click on this and click on the eyeball to click show, it shows it again. Does that answer your question? So that's the way to tell they're two separate bodies. One, you'll see this folder up here, and it'll tell you the number of bodies you have. Two, when they intersect with each other, there won't be a black line defining them. And in fact, you'll be able to see, like if you select a face, that it actually crashes into the other. So again, for comparison, let's combine them again. So let me go here, click Edit Feature, check Merge Result, click Check. Now do you see that there's that black line there? And now when I select this face, it stops there. It no longer goes in. You'll also notice that this solid body is changed from 2 to 1. You'll also notice if I right click on here and click hide, then the star is hidden as well, because now they're glued together, they're stuck together. Let's see. I think let's first check that within a sketch. So if let's see, bottom down. Yeah. Okay, so bottom left and up. So let's look, these two lines that I'm bisecting, they will not be selected. Top left down, these two lines I'm bisecting, they are selected. So within a sketch, it's the same. So let's check your answer, let's see if we can answer your question for bodies. So let's, again, go back in here, tell it I don't want it to merge. I want them to stay separate. And let's see, bottom left up, it selected edges. Okay, so let's try that again. Bottom edge up and bisecting those. It did not select them. Bottom edge down. it seems that when it's the body, or when you're out of a sketch, it doesn't matter. It's always it's never going to select it unless it's fully inside. So yeah, again, some terminology. So what's that called? That's in blue. That's a face. What's this called? Edge. What's that called? Body. What's that called? Vertex. Point. I'll probably call it a point. But interchangeable. Similarly, within here, or maybe I'll edit the star. I'm more likely to call this a vertex, but they're both vertex. They're both points, vertices. Cool. So just for the sake of this, let's see how we might edit this. So if you have an error, again, if you hover over it, it'll tell you could not find face or plane. You could always go here and say, actually, let me escape out of this. You could always go in here and say, what's wrong? And it should tell you a little bit more in detail sometimes. But, did I see a hand? Sorry. I don't expect you guys to know this, but there are some options up here. So if I see here it says could not find face or plane, up here there's an icon, which is a pencil with like a plane essentially at a angle, so it looks like a plane. And you can see here that if I hover over it, it says edit sketch plane. I can click on this, and you can see here here is telling me the error. It says missing. It's in yellow, like a yellow-green, horrible yellow-green. I can click on this, delete it, and say, hey, you know, it's asking, it wants me to pick a new plane for this to be built off of. So now I can click front, click check, and now there's no longer an error. However, that said, now it starts in the middle. It no longer starts on this edge. So this might be a reason why I might want to go in here, edit the feature, and say, you know what, I don't want the sketch to start on the plane. I actually want it to be offset by about an inch before it starts, because I don't want it to be in the middle of my object. So that would be a reason to use like that offset. Another way to do that, and again, just like I said, there's a million different ways to get to the end goal. Again, my goal in this class, especially with Project 1, is to try and show you the best orientation and organization of features. So another way to achieve that, maybe let's look at a new feature now. So again, I can click the top sketch or top plane. I can say, give me a sketch. You'll notice that it didn't like default to like orient in my direction. One tool to use is this one, normal to. Again, I'll get into some of my hotkeys in a minute that I've set up, but that's one I use all the time is normal to. So what that means is whichever way it's facing, if I select the top plane now and I select normal to, it'll rotate it so that I'm looking directly straight onto it. I'm in my sketch feature. So now I might want to cut this portion of the star away out of the center. So again, I can go to my circle tool. I can click on here on the origin. You'll notice that when it gets to this circle, it kind of stops and turns orange. It's kind of like a snap feature. I can click on that. I can click check. And now for features, I can go to extrude cut. And now it's just like extrude, it looks the same, but instead of being additive, it's now subtractive. You'll notice that there's this arrow. This is another way to change the direction, the angle. You can literally click and drag it. So I'm dragging this way now. I'm going to click the check box. Now we'll look inside here at cut away the star. Does everyone see that? And hopefully, again, you guys notice, just like a history in Photoshop, it now collects all of this information. Yeah. Any questions on anything? There's a lot. I just went over a lot, but you guys are sticking with it, which is great. Yeah, Charlie.
When you mess with the thickness of the cube a while back,
Yes, there's similarities there. So here, let me just hide all of these. So again, so you can select bodies and right click them and just like hide them. Again, or let's see, it looks like I click on this and it pops up anyway. So over time, we will learn what these icons do. I will see if I can Google just like a spreadsheet with just like a name of all the icons. I'm sure that would be helpful. I'll look, let me make a note of that real quick. So you'll get to learn some of these things. So the eyeball with the dash through it means hide. So okay, so again, top plane. So I'm going to use some of my hotkeys right now. So on the top, one of my hotkeys is Alt-S to make a sketch. So I select the top plane. I say, hey, I want there to be a sketch on there. I'll then go Alt-N. That makes it normal to me. I'll then hit R to make a rectangle. Click and drag. I'll then hit Enter or Escape, and then Enter. Oh, oops, no. Escape, and then click on this. And now I'm out of the sketch. Now with the sketch still selected on the left here, I'll go to my features. I'll click on Extrude. I believe this is what you were asking before. You were saying if I click on the thin feature. What the thin feature does is it says, okay, instead of extruding the solid body, so in this sketch I made what's called a contour. It's like a closed shape. It's a square or a rectangle. The default is to extrude a solid body that's that contour. If I check the thin feature, it does give me thickness to the edge. It takes all of the lines and gives them thickness. It is very similar to an offset, is the short answer. I realize I'm making this a lot longer, but it's an opportunity to talk about the thin feature. Within the thin feature, there are options. So just like you tell a sketch to offset how far you want it to offset, in the thin feature, you can tell it how thick you want the edges to be. So I can make it 0.2 inches. I can make it ½ an inch. So I'm clicking here, I'm clicking 0.5, and I'm hitting Tab or Enter. Nope, Tab was what I wanted. Let's see here, let me change this to 0.1 again. Yeah, Tab. Let me change it to 0.5. Tab tells it to update. You'll notice that it goes to the outside of the sketch by default. By clicking this, you can tell it to go to the inside. And again, like I said, with a program, there's a million different ways to do this. So let me quickly show you the comparison. Right-click, hide, top, Alt-S to make a sketch, Alt-N to make it face me, R to make a rectangle. Now I can select this. Within my sketch tools, I can go to Offset Entities. I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but this is, again, a tool. So you'll notice that it starts a yellow box. If I click reverse, it pulls it to the inside. But you are now creating an offset within the sketch. And here I'm changing the value here. I click check. Now when I go to extrude, this is now the contour it's selected. So again, it's like two different ways to do it. There's different times you want to do different things. It depends on like ultimately what you're trying to do, whether you would do one over the other. I'm trying to think like let's say you're trying to do this, what I would recommend. I feel like if you're doing a thin feature like this, I would do it as a sketch. Trying to think why. That's just like my gut default would be to do that as a sketch. There's other things like fillets that you don't want to, you could do as a sketch, but you don't want to do as a sketch. This is the best way I can verbalize it. I think it is just more typical. It is more, doing an extrude as a thin feature is somewhat not typical, at least in my experience. And that's my main answer. So like if you are working on a file to pass off to someone else and you did the extrude as a thin, they may not expect that. They may look at the sketch before looking at the thin feature. And again, project one is going to be really dialed in on doing a very specific thing. And hopefully through the conversations on how to efficiently build a bottle, hopefully it'll start to give you just like, again, it's kind of like getting our feet wet, but hopefully like start to make you think about best practices for building other things as well. It's kind of a really long answer, but does that make sense? All right. Yeah, please keep going. It is Control Z. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I'm curious. So I know the majority of you, I think, have Macs. And unfortunately, I don't have a Mac, so there may be a little, and I've never run SolidWorks on boot camp. So there may be some discrepancies there, but again, please speak up anytime there's something slightly different, and we'll sort it out. So that said, I have for you guys here copy. What I have is what's in yellow is what I tend to use often. What's in bold are ones that I created myself. So I guess at the top, and I can go this, I just try to look at like how to translate from Windows on a Mac. So anytime there's Alt, it should just be Option. I think Macs have a Control key, right? Control when you're running Windows, at least based on what I Googled. So those are the three differences at the top. I realize it's two-sided, but on the side that says SolidWorks hotkeys on the top, those are the translations between Windows key and Mac key. So again, the stuff highlighted in yellow is what I tend to use the most. Now, the things in bold you won't have by default on your machine, but this might be a time to like work together to set up your SolidWorks similar to mine. I guess before we go are there any more questions on kind of like some of these intros, basics? Okay. Do you guys need a break? Am I talking too much? You can be honest with me. Yeah, break. Okay. I'm not offended. I full disclosure, I can be long-winded. Like, feel free to raise your hand and whatever, break things up. So I'm going to pause. Yeah, I guess these videos are going to be long. Okay, obviously, the nice thing with being a video, you can like click through and find stuff. Okay, good. Gotcha. Cool. No, I'm more than happy to do it. I just inevitably I always end up looking at the videos and it's like, oh man, it's an hour long. Like, how is anyone going to find any information in this? But so yeah, would this pop up as a very strong hint? What's one of the most important things that I have completely neglected to say? Save as you go. Always save your work. There's nothing worse than losing your work. It happens to all of us. I will always forget to say it as I demo. You know, that's a great question. Let me make a note specifically. So I have experience before it'll crash and it'll just say like, hey, we got this for you. I've never looked into like how it does it and how often it does it. Sometimes it does it. I will look into auto-saving. The short answer is I just rely on the default, whatever it is. So yeah, give me time to look into that. I think, let's see, is there a save hotkey? There should be. Yeah, Control S. So something that you can always do as you're working. Okay. Because that was a demo, I'm not saving that, and we're closing this. So, okay, in a half hour, I am going to attempt to do two things. One, for those of you that have SolidWorks up and running, this is a time when I'm going to invite you to work with me. The goal is literally to just set up our SolidWorks in the same way. And that way, hopefully the layout looks the same. When I talk about my hotkeys, you can use the same hotkey. Now, by no means do you need to use my hotkeys. You are welcome to use what you want. I considered reverting back to the default, but I am so used to my workflow that I didn't want to do that, and I find that it works for me. And so I'm just going to encourage you guys to do that. Funny side note, I have a friend at work. He's also a freelancer. He started some hotkey thing, and it kind of like spread from firm to firm because he was jumping around. And it'd be fun, I'd like show up and be like, oh, it's Kyle's settings on this computer. Like they just got used to it because he had it set up. So these things you probably in some way. Anyways, okay. So, and then for those of you, Daniel, thank you so much. So yeah, for those of you that have SolidWorks up and running, please follow along. For those of you that don't, I'm sorry, but it looks like at 40 minutes in the video, I'll make it note of that. You can go here and just follow along and set it up to match. So I'm going to ask everyone to go to Box and download. I mean, you also, I guess you don't have to do this now if you don't want to, but if you go to Box and DES400 Spring 2019, go to the SolidWorks setup, you will see there's a couple files in there. One is the hotkeys PDF, which I have printed for you guys. There's 3 template files which you can download. We'll get to that in a minute. But right now, the main thing is the file at the bottom, at least it's at the bottom for me, called DES400 SW18 settings. The file extension is SLDREG. So if you want to go ahead and download that. For me, it downloads to my desktop, just so you should know where it goes, or if it's in your download folder, at least be ready to navigate there. Once you guys are there, if you go to, I believe, Tools, so you should have SolidWorks open. Now, I'm in 2018. I believe the student edition I saw said 2018-19. I'm going to assume that they're similar. Again, we'll cross bridges when we see there's discrepancies when we get there. If you go to Tools and go to Save Restore Settings, you should see this pop-up happen. Let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow. If you all see this, you're not there yet? No worries. Take your time. So again, Tools, and then Save Restore Settings. You want to go to Restore Settings. So click on that tab on the bottom, and then go down and click Next. You can leave all of those checked. Did I do this already, or is it just smart? Anyway, click Browse, and you want to go to wherever that file is and just select it. So for me, it's on my desktop. Again, here it's called DES400. Now that said, actually, sorry, before you hit Next, if any of you absolutely love the way that your SolidWorks is laid out, you know where everything is, you can uncheck everything except keyboard shortcuts. Honestly, really the main thing is keyboard shortcuts. If you're like afraid of changing too much, honestly, just do keyboard shortcuts. That's like the main goal of what we're doing right now. But if you want to have like the exact same layout, view, system set up exactly as I have it, leave everything checked. And then when you're ready to do that, just click Next. It's asking if you want to create a backup of what you have in case you want to revert. You can leave that checked. I think it'll dump it onto you wherever the last one was. I'm going to uncheck that because I don't need it. But if, yeah, that way you can save whatever settings you currently have and click Finish. This is telling me, hey, you didn't make a backup. You should do that. And I'm saying, I know that, and I'm just clicking yes. And that's it. So now you should all have the same hotkeys for me, as me. So if we want to do a quick test, if you go to like File, New, double click on Part. If you click on Top Plane, and click Alt-N, it should rotate to show you the plane fully. Again, if you're on a Mac, it should be Option-N. Left side Option-N. Let me know if that works. It's not working? As I troubleshoot for people. Now, next up is templates. So again, if you want to go on Box and download, I'll just show you guys well, yeah, let's do this. If you want to just download these templates. Again, it's like I have my lighting set up. I have the background being clear or white. Honestly, I think you can get away with just part and assembly. You don't have to worry about drawing for now if you don't want to, but or we can, I don't know. Maybe it's worth doing them all. So let me know when everyone has those downloaded. You know what? Let's just do them all. Might as well. Yeah, part, assembly, and drawing. The reason I say drawing isn't as important is there's like not a lot of changes I made to the drawing. Really, it's the main change is to the lighting in both the part and the assembly. Let me double check that. See, I don't know why it's not defaulting. Yeah, okay, it does work. Nice. Yeah, okay. So once you guys have that downloaded, this is the best way. This is a little convoluted, but this is the best way I can think to do this. So just make a new part. And the reason we're doing this is we're trying to find the direct, I think all our computers are probably slightly different where you have your files saved. So if you create a new part and then you go to File, Save As. So again, let me know if I'm going too quickly. So you download the files, you create a new part, then you go File, Save As. In your Save As type, you want to change this to Part Templates. Hopefully, if your computer's like mine, it'll give you a new path at the top here that tells you where your templates are stored or saved. If anyone has a better way to do this, you're welcome to tell me. But basically what I do is, now that I see this file extension, and maybe yours is the same as mine, maybe it's C, Program Data, SolidWorks 2018 templates. What I do is I click on here and I copy it, Control C. And I realize it might be slightly different for Mac users. But then if you go to like your browser, your file explorer, and paste that location, you now know where to put templates. Another way to do it, actually wait, maybe this might be easier, sorry guys, is if you open up the template wherever it's saved. Let's see if we can go File, Save As. This might be easier. Oh, but it's not defaulting. Is that working for you guys where you're finding that location of where templates are saved? Because really the goal is to find that location and literally then just drag the files there and then you're done. If that for some reason doesn't work, what I can do for next time is just create dummy parts that you can all then just save as a template, that you can open up and then save as a template. But my only fear there is if you open a part, I may just default it to wherever it's located. Yeah, Alexis. Oh, that's right, because you are on 17, okay. Oh, you okay, yeah, so it seems like that works. So again, just the way to do it is if you just make a new file, save as, the goal of this again is to just find the file location of where your part templates are saved, copy this, and just drag the templates in there. If you want to, you don't have to delete the old templates out of there. If you want to create a new file off of one of my templates, if you go to Advanced here, you may see like multiple files here. Really part W and SMW are the ones that I created. And again, it is a lightings and background, but it is not a make or break. You can definitely survive without them. Okay, in the remaining 13 minutes, I'm just going to talk about Project 1 and let you guys know what to anticipate. When that's done, I'll keep recording. When that's done, at that point, whoever wants to leave is welcome to leave. You will not be penalized. But if anyone wants to stay and continue working on the tutorial with my help, or wants to get started on the tutorial with me, I'm happy to do that. Okay, project 1, let's pull this back up. It's gonna look hefty, guys. Don't be scared. We'll work through it together, but you can see here, this is part of your syllabus. Project 1, the goal is structural packaging, study, and redesign. Again, this is kind of like a getting our feet wet. The goal of this project is to introduce to you guys a method called, I guess I don't know what it's called. The term, it's building a model off of what's called a master sketch. I don't know if the whole method has a name, like master sketch building or whatever, but the method and the master sketch essentially is what you do is you create one sketch, a SolidWorks sketch, just like we talked about, at the start of your tree, and you have all of your features refer to that sketch. As you recall, a feature consumes a sketch. Once you tell it to extrude, then the sketch becomes part of the feature. If you take the time to make a very carefully designed master sketch at the top and copy aspects of the sketch throughout your model, what you then have is a sketch at the top that anyone who's working on your file, they can just go to the sketch and make the model wider or make it taller by just changing one sketch and not having to go in and find in the feature where it grows, where it gets wider. So it's just an efficient way of working. It kind of says, it's a way of saying, hey guys, all of the important information, we're going to put it in a single sketch and have everything point to that. It's, again, just all about workflow. So what you're going to do, so this is part of your homework, is you want to pick a bottle to redesign for next class. You need to have it physically with you. You need to bring it in. The example I have is sriracha. Just literally whatever you have lying around at home. My advice to everyone is to pick a bottle that is perfectly round, something you can revolve. It will make your life easier for this project. In my opinion, I'm a little worried it might make it too easy, but it's fine. We're getting our feet wet. If you want to kind of like spread your wings a little bit, you feel like you have a basic grasp of SolidWorks, you want to challenge yourself, you can pick a bottle that's not round. So I have here Filippo Di Rio olive oil bottle. Honestly, like, this is all you need to do. When you model this, you don't need to worry about things like this. We're just going to look at the overall shape. Again, though, for those of you that want to like challenge yourselves, we can try and figure stuff out. Do keep in mind something like this at the bottom will make your life a little more challenging. We can maybe make an agreement to ignore it, but I would try to just work with you to build it in there. It's actually not too hard. Cool. So the bottle you pick, ideally it's round. Maybe it's kind of fun if it doesn't have to be iconic, but you know, if you're not sure what to pick, I mean, step 1, just whatever you have lying around. But step 2, something you actually want to redesign, it's probably better. Who knows? You might get something out of it that you're happy with. So next week, what we're going to do, we're going to start to reverse engineer this model. So the other part of the homework is not just picking the model, but it's either scanning it or getting as nice a flat picture as you can get of it. The reason for that is we then trace the bottle in SolidWorks to create the sketch. So again, quick recap, you're picking a bottle, something that you have, number 1, something that you want to redesign, something that's revolvable, that's round, and then just taking a picture of it. Again, the example I have here is I took a picture of it on a gridded paper. Now, this does lead to some issues in SolidWorks if I'm trying to trace this, such as on SolidWorks, this is going to be a straight line before I revolve it. But obviously, given the curvature and 3-dimensionality of the photo, it's curved on the bottom. That's where a scan is slightly better than a photo. This is obviously a photo. So if you can ideally scan the bottle, whatever it is, just put it on your scanner, put it over there, scan it. It'll give you a slightly more flat view, which will be helpful. We will then use like rulers and stuff to measure it, but basically I can open this file and show you guys what this looks like. Which one is it? Here, let's go. One called aptly sriracha. Just give you guys a preview of what this looks like. And I'll show you guys, with any remaining time, I'll show you guys how to get started with this, but really this is the majority of the demo for next week. Is you take the photo, you drop it in the background of your drawing, or of SolidWorks as its own sketch. You scale it till it's about the right height. You can see here I had to make some adjustments, right? Like I'm making an assumption that this is the amount of curvature. You're just kind of getting close. It's a mixture of tracing the bottle, but then using like calipers and a ruler to kind of get some of these details. So we make a very detailed sketch. Again, you can think of this similar to Illustrator. So it's like I am tracing this photo as if I were an illustrator with a straight line, a little bit of curvature here, some lines coming in and out. This takes a little bit of time to set up, but this is a big part of the project. And again, this is all about efficient workflow. If you set this up in the right way, and I'll be honest, I actually made some mistakes in how I set this exact one up, which I will correct for you guys, don't worry. It will make your life easier. So what happens, so this is what is known as the master sketch, and you can see I've in fact renamed it master. Here I made a new sketch where I copied part of it, and I literally just, with one command, I revolved it. So now I have, if I hide this, I have the start of the sriracha bottle, the next revolve. I did this, this is a bit of an experiment to show you guys best practice. Again, depending on your skill level and ability and the time flow and how this goes is going to dictate how much detail I want from you guys. The more detail, the better. So in this instance, I did some extrusions for the ridges. I built a quarter so that I didn't have to like worry about all of these ridges. And then I just mirrored it twice to get this top part of the bottle. But now what's nice to just show you guys a preview and like how we talked about earlier, you can change things. Now if I go to this master sketch, and let's say that my client comes to me and says, hey, this is great. I have a 17-ounce sriracha bottle. You know what? I want a 24-ounce sriracha bottle. I can go in here and be like, all right, well, it's probably going to get fatter, get more volume out of there. You can see that the sketch kind of blew up a little bit here. So maybe make some tweaks. Again, we'll get into this. This is all about smart dimensioning. My dimensioning is not good. But just for the sake of showing you how the master sketch works, now I have a fat sriracha bottle. And I literally just, again, clearly there's mistakes. But it's a very simple way to make quick changes. And this is what I want to teach you guys in Project One. There is. Great question. So remember before, again, you guys had, well, now that we all have my settings in theory, but if you had Command Manager, there's Evaluate here. You can click Mass Properties, and you can click on the bottle, and this is part of Project One, so that's a good question. You look at the volume here, it's 76 cubic inches. That's all we're looking at. So that's how we start. We start by building a bottle. We print it out full scale to review it. That's going to happen in 2 weeks from today. That's kind of like a mid-project critique, make sure your bottle looks good. From there, what we do is then you start to redesign the bottle. It doesn't have to be too complicated. Again, if we look at my example here in the syllabus, I took this drawing, I made some basic changes, I kind of exaggerated the neck feature. That's kind of going to be my advice to you guys, is to maybe take a feature of the bottle and either exaggerate it or modify it slightly. Things that you can do to like align it. This is called the neck finish. Here it kind of comes in a bit. Here I'm like, it still needs to have a bit of a gap there, but I'm trying to align it visually a little bit more. You can do that by hand and however way you want to do that sketch. You then pull that sketch back into SolidWorks into your exact same file. You're not making a new one. And then you modify your master sketch to match your new hand sketch. And then you get a new bottle out of that. Then the final step is then to make a different size bottle using the exact same methods. So essentially you're building one bottle, you're modifying it 3 times. That gives you your end result. There will be some challenges. Most of it is going to be in figuring out how to organize your sketch as smart as possible. That will be the majority of next class. So it is absolutely imperative that by next class that you know what bottle you want to redesign, that you have it with you, and that you're ready to start making the master sketch of that bottle. Sound good? Correct, in class. The homework is tutorials 1 and 2. Some of you were able to get a good jump start on that today. Again, if anyone wants to stay now and work on that with me, I'm happy to one-on-one that with you guys. Let's do this right now in terms of how to turn things in. Being the first project, if there's challenges, I'm happy to just look at it over your screen and say, yep, you did it. But I think it's a good idea for us to just start to get familiar with how this class is going to run. I'm in box right now, and for some reason, I am having trouble. There we go. It's like Friday at 5:30, my brain just like shuts down. Okay, I'm going to create a new folder in here. Let's see, we're just going to call it homework. And what I'll do is within here, I will create new folders. So the next class is January 25th. I will just create a folder called Jan 25th. Just upload your, I believe it's 3 files, right? You have your 2 parts in an assembly. If you want to zip them, you can. If you just want to drag all 3 of them, you can. Just put your name in the file. And let's just get used to this kind of upload. So, and in general, my requirement is just that it's in there before class starts. When it comes to final projects, I'm going to request an hour before class starts. When it comes to regular run-of-the-mill homework, just have it in there by 1 p.m. Sound good? Any questions on that? All right. What's your guys' homework? Repeat it back to me. Yep. Pick a bottle and scan it and bring in the bottle. Cool. Yeah, that's all I got for you guys.